It seems like every time people talk about Hendrick Motorsports, the conversation always ends up in the same place. It almost automatically turns to Kyle Larson. To many fans, he's still the most naturally gifted driver in NASCAR, the guy who can win on virtually any type of track and turn an ordinary race into something unforgettable. And when it isn't Larson dominating the headlines, it's usually William Byron, who has established himself as one of the strongest championship contenders over the past few seasons. But while nearly everyone's attention was locked on those two drivers, something very different was happening inside Hendrick Motorsports. A story was quietly unfolding, and because it wasn't loud or dramatic, most people never noticed it. One of the fascinating things about NASCAR is that the driver getting the most attention isn't always the one building the strongest championship campaign. Sometimes the real title threat is the driver who stays out of the spotlight, quietly collecting strong finishes, avoiding costly mistakes, and taking advantage of every opportunity to stay in contention. And right now, no one fits that description better than Chase Elliott. For a while, many fans started believing Elliott had fallen behind within Hendrick Motorsports. Larson was putting together incredible performances, Byron kept piling up wins, and even Alex Bowman was finding himself in the spotlight during key moments. Little by little, the narrative became that the number 9 car was no longer Hendrick's biggest championship hope. But here's what makes Chase Elliott different. He never answered that narrative with bold interviews or controversial comments. He didn't try to force himself back into the headlines. He simply went back to work, and that mindset has quietly changed the direction of his entire season. While much of the NASCAR world debated who the biggest championship favorite was, Elliott kept doing something that very few drivers can sustain over an entire season. He kept delivering consistent results. When he earned his first victory of the year, many people treated it as a one-off, a great weekend, one of those races where everything just happened to come together. But anyone paying close attention noticed something different. That win wasn't an accident. It was the result of weeks of steady progress. There's an old saying in motorsports that championships aren't won only on the days you win races. They're won on the days you limit the damage when things don't go perfectly. That's exactly what Chase Elliott has been doing all season. While some of his rivals alternated between victories, crashes, mechanical failures, or disappointing finishes, Elliott continued bringing home solid points nearly every weekend. Maybe he wasn't leading the most laps, maybe he wasn't making the highlight reel passes that flooded social media, but he kept putting himself in position, week after week, race after race. That kind of consistency rarely generates the same excitement as a dominant victory. It doesn't become the lead story on racing shows, and it usually doesn't dominate the headlines. But longtime NASCAR fans know that's exactly how championships are built. Quietly. While Larson continued receiving praise as arguably the most talented driver in the garage, and Byron remained one of the betting favorites, Chase Elliott was putting together one of the most complete seasons in the field without attracting nearly as much attention. Then came Chicagoland. Most fans watched that race because of the dramatic finish. Others focused on the strategy calls and the intense battles throughout the field. But perhaps the biggest story didn't appear until after the checkered flag. When the points were updated, Chase Elliott had officially climbed back into the top 5 of the NASCAR Cup Series standings. At first glance, it might look like just another update in the championship standings, but it's much bigger than that. It means the number 9 team is officially back in the championship conversation. It means the driver many people had quietly written off has worked his way back to exactly where championship contenders belong. And maybe that's where the biggest mistake is being made. There's a huge difference between being NASCAR's most talked about driver and being its most dangerous one. Kyle Larson is still an incredible talent. William Byron absolutely deserves to be considered one of the championship favorites. None of that has changed. What has changed is Chase Elliott. Without making a scene, without creating controversy, without demanding attention, he simply started delivering results again. And there's another reason this matters. Hendrick Motorsports appears to have all 4 of its cars running competitively at the same time. That gives the organization more strategic flexibility and reduces the pressure on any single driver to carry the entire team. For Chase Elliott, that could be exactly the environment he needs. While much of the competition remains focused on Larson or Byron, Elliott has been able to continue building momentum with far less pressure than many of his rivals. And that's often how championship runs begin. First come the solid finishes, then comes the consistency. Next comes the steady climb up the standings, and before anyone realizes what's happening, that driver is suddenly fighting for the championship. Can anyone say with certainty that Chase Elliott will win this year's Cup Series title? Of course not. NASCAR is simply too unpredictable. A single caution, a bad pit stop, or a mechanical issue can completely change the course of a season. But there's a big difference between not guaranteeing someone a championship and completely overlooking what's happening right in front of us. The statistics show Elliott is back. The results show Elliott is back. The standings show Elliott is back. And perhaps most importantly, the way he's doing it looks remarkably similar to the championship version of Chase Elliott that fans remember so well. No panic, no desperation, no need to win every single race, just building a championship campaign one weekend at a time. Maybe that's exactly why so many people still haven't realized how dangerous Chase Elliott has become, because this comeback hasn't been loud. It hasn't been fueled by constant headlines. It has simply kept growing. And when a championship threat grows quietly inside the most successful organization in modern NASCAR, it's usually a sign that something important is happening. Maybe everyone will keep talking about Kyle Larson. Maybe William Byron will continue receiving much of the attention over the coming weeks.